I guess the only way to find out is to wait.
Well, yeah, but we still got to speculate all over the place.
Oh yeah, of
course.
Well, obviously.
I'm Tom Dickinson.
And I'm Louis Midas.
And this is The Cloister Room,
a podcast about Doctor Who and other things. I really liked this episode.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah, you tweeted.
I did. I don't usually tweet, but I was just so full of something. I was completely glued to my screen whilst watching it.
Well, yeah, and because it seems like Stephen Moffat has this thing. I think he's done it before, where he'll, within the first few minutes of an episode, just give you an explanation to, or give you an answer to the question you've been asking all season long, and then spend the entire rest of the episode explaining that answer. And I think that was definitely kind of what was going on here, and I loved that. Well,
I loved it too, especially because I think I mentioned last week that I had accidentally been maybe spoiled.
Oh, yes.
I saw a tweet that was part of a conversation, and here are the three things that were said in that tweet.
Okay.
One is Clara spreads herself throughout time to save the Doctor.
Okay.
And so I was very glad that happened. That was revealed in the very opening minutes of the episode, so I didn't have to worry about it.
Right.
And then the other thing that they spoiled was the Doctor doesn't reveal his name, which, I mean, duh.
Yeah, right.
And then the third thing they spoiled was River dies, which didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah, so I turned out not to be spoiled after all.
Well, there you go. And that's good.
But yeah, I did really like the way he structured that, such that, the question on everybody's mind, you immediately get some kind of answer to it.
Mm.
That was really quite good.
Yeah. I mean, it sort of, I think, subverts your expectations in a way, because you think, you expect that if there's this big question, you expect it to be answered at the end of the finale, and not the beginning. And I mean, obviously the rest of the episode, you want an explanation for how, because, it was basically, we find out in the first few minutes why Clara is the way she is, or, well, we find out that she is in fact spread throughout time, and that is answered, but we don't know how or why, and so that is what is then gone on to be explained, which I like, and I thought that was really well done.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's kind of like I don't know. It's a part of what makes this episode so great is that sometimes it feels like there's so much promotional material out there about Doctor Who that there's nothing really left to the viewer. It just it's all spoiled almost,
right? And
not really spoiled, but you get primed for absolutely everything,
right?
Whereas with this episode, the things that were so out there in terms of what was finally we're going to find this out and that out, and they ended up being they were in the episode, but they were almost secondary to the other stuff that I at least was completely unprepared for, and completely this episode just regularly surprised me and astonished me even.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's funny because right away where you're given that when you're presented with that sort of montage of Clara, basically stalking all the other incarnations of the Doctor, I just could not believe what I was seeing. That they had gone to all these lengths to just show these different clips of all the different Doctors doing their thing, and Clara's there, and it was just I could not believe it. I don't know. It was just it was not what I was expecting at all.
Well, there a very long time ago, as long as maybe a year or two ago, there was a rumor. Actually, probably not 2 years ago, but at least a year ago, there was a rumor that all the Doctors would be back at some point during the 50th anniversary year through a combination of archive footage, CG, and body doubles. And when I heard that, I was like, that sounds awful. I hope they don't do that. If they can't properly get the actors back, they shouldn't bother. That just sounds like a recipe for failure. And that was so wrong, because I thought it was so cool the way they managed to really make it work.
Yeah, yeah. And they even sort of put like a filter or whatever on Clara so that it looked like she matched the scene that she was in or whatever. And yeah, I just thought that was really cool, especially with like with the first Doctor, and like because all the other Doctors is just kind of like them running past or whatever. But with the first Doctor, it's actually like a snippet of his dialogue, and it's kind of I'm it was repurposed for that, but it was it was really well done.
It's done in a way that it really does feel like it's it's new William Hartnell stuff. Like yeah. we're finding out something new about his story.
Yeah.
It really does. It's there not just to be a meaningless callback to the first Doctor, but it adds something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing about Clara convincing him to take one TARDIS over the other.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting, because the Doctor's wife implies that it was the TARDIS who stole the Doctor.
Yeah.
But I guess the TARDIS had an assist from Clara.
Yeah, case. Sometimes you need a wing girl. I liked that whole just visual of it being William, because I mean obviously it is William Hartnell who would steal the TARDIS, because that was the first Doctor. But it's just cool that we saw him actually do that. Like, yeah, I don't know why. That's cool to me. I don't know why.
There was even a brief glimpse of Susan.
Yeah, so that was very cool, because I mean, like, I don't know. It's just something about that. It's just very, very cool.
Anyone who was complaining that like you've only got the 11th Doctor and the 10th Doctor in the 50th anniversary special. That's not the anniversary year. That's yeah. I feel like this should have put any kind of complaint about that to rest.
Oh yeah.
Even though I'm sure that more is still to come.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the 50th anniversary is going to be a continuation of what we've seen here, and I'd kind of assumed that the events of this episode would lead into the 50th, because it just seemed like it would have been too weird to just like have everything be resolved in the name of the Doctor, and then the 50th be just some completely separate compartmentalized story.
Yeah.
It just seemed to me like there must be some sort of I thought there would be some kind of lead in, but to build up to that in the way that they have in this episode, I think it's abundantly clear that the 50th is, well, it's going to be the 50th. Because I just feel like this whole finale was about the Doctor's past, and I think that the 50th will be a continuation of that.
And yet it was also about the Doctor's future.
Well, oh yeah, well, very true. And that's also very cool.
I kind of agree about the whole idea of it being like a connected story. Even still, though, I was a little surprised, because last year it seemed like every time there was some kind of big cliffhanger, the BBC official Twitter account and everything was like, wait till you see the cliffhanger on this week's episode. But there was none of that at all. There wasn't even really a hint that, stay tuned right to the end because something big's going to happen. So obviously I thought that was a possibility, but it wasn't signposted that it was going to lead right in. Although obviously, as you say, it does make sense, because it makes the 6-month gap feel like it's all part of one big anniversary year, as opposed to, here's some stuff and then there's some stuff and then here's some more stuff. So
right. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it wasn't just the big, beginning montage, and it wasn't just the big, ending surprise. Mm-hmm. It was everything in between. I was just constantly. I think that the reason that the whole story worked so much for me is because, unlike some of the other episodes this season where they've had to, really speed things up to cram absolutely everything in, this was actually kind of a simple story about, even though it's about something complicated.
Yeah.
Because really the whole thrust of the story is that in the beginning, the Doctor's friends get threatened, then the Doctor goes to rescue them, and then they all go inside. The Great Intelligence reveals his plan, and then Clara stops him. And that's really just the entire plot of the episode.
Yeah.
So each of those things was like given a real, nothing was rushed. Everything had a chance to make some real impact. There were some nice, slow moments and fast moments. And I don't know, I just thought everything kind of had room to breathe, and everything, there was nothing that felt like, oh, we didn't get enough of that. I mean, I would have liked a little bit more info on the Whispermen and what they were.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I felt like they did a really good job giving everything in the episode its own fair due.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and, I liked the concepts that were introduced, like the idea of the TARDIS, like, growing bigger as it's kind of, like, dying, because of the bigger on the outside kind of bleeds out. I thought that was kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, which, it's one of those things where you think about it and it's like, hey, that makes sense. That makes sense that, like, it wouldn't be able to hold itself in anymore or something like that. And I mean, like, of course, none of it makes sense, but it just seems like, oh yeah, that could happen. It doesn't feel out of place in, like, the legend of the TARDIS kind of concept, like that sort of canon or whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't know, it kind of fits in. It kind of just, like, fits right in there.
It certainly does.
And the idea that, like, when the Doctor dies, this kind of, I don't know, glowing, spinning web of whatever is kind of what happens to him or his body or whatever. That was kind of a cool concept as well. And furthermore, I like the idea that it didn't seem like a big question was ever what Trenzalore was, like what it like it seemed like the interesting thing about it was seemingly that this was the one place where the Doctor would not be able to lie or whatever. But and that wasn't really what it was about, but it was interesting that it turned out to be his tomb. Well, because that was kind of not really, that was something that I guess I'd never really thought about, was like what actually was at Trenzalore. But like the idea that it is his tomb, that was something that I had not thought of, but is very cool.
Well, here is the one of the big questions. There are several big questions raised by this episode, including the biggest one that I intend to dance around until we get to it.
Okay.
One of the questions that was kind of raised for me is when the Silents were trying to stop the Doctor from getting to from ever coming to Trenzalore. Mm-hmm. And Dorium kind of tells him that, the question will be asked at the fall of the 11th at Trenzalore. Mm-hmm. Was that referring to the events we saw in this episode, or the events that we are told about in this episode that are still in the Doctor's future?
That's interesting, because I had assumed that those events were, that what Dorium was talking about was what we were seeing right then and there.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, I don't think that makes all that much sense, because what happened in this episode doesn't match up really with what the kinds of things he semed to be talking about.
Okay, yeah.
That would happen.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that was a thing that kind of stuck out to me. So I am inclined to agree with you that we have not actually seen what Dorium was describing, because it doesn't really seem like the Doctor could have not answered. I mean, he didn't answer. River actually did. So it almost seems like that yes, that might be true, that we actually have not seen that thing happen. Because yeah, I mean, otherwise it was basically just pretty much your run of the mill blackmail. The Great Intelligence was going to kill his friends if he didn't do it, and he could have not done it and just let his friends die, but he chose not to.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things in this episode which seem to strongly hint that the big event, the blood-soaked battle at Trenzalore, is something that the 11th Doctor participates in. Because when Clara goes into the Doctor's time stream, which includes all of his days from when he first left Gallifrey up to the big battle at Trenzalore, she says that she sees all 11 of his faces.
Right.
Also, the dead TARDIS is the current console room.
Oh, right, yeah.
And the TARDIS still has a broken window.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, the gigantic monument of the TARDIS has a broken window with the same crack on it that the TARDIS gets when it first lands there. So what I'm kind of wondering is whether this is something Moffat intends to resolve or leave open for future writers to explore. But this might just be me being especially optimistic that Moffat has some grand plan when, there have been some rather sloppy elements to his plotting so far.
Right.
But if I guess for now I'm going to allow myself to be the optimist and think that we are still in the midst of the big story of what the Silents were trying to prevent from happening.
Yeah, and that could very well be. I mean, it's I don't know. See, I kind of like the idea though of the Doctor's tomb. I mean, well, the thing is that I don't think that they have any intention of ending the show after Matt Smith leaves.
Right, obviously.
So in order to resolve all of that with, Matt Smith being the Doctor who dies and ends up in that tomb, that would I mean, obviously it doesn't have to stop them, but it seems like this is it kind of felt like this is the end of the Doctor, like this
of Doctor Who.
Yeah, well, yeah, basically, this is how the story ends, basically. And I don't know. There's something about the idea that we will never get to that, or we might get to that, but it would be sometime in the very far future. I don't know. I kind of like that feeling that we are seeing, well, the Doctor's grave. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I do kind of like that, but also at the same time, this wouldn't be the only time that the Doctor's death has been heavily foreshadowed, only to not happen.
That's true. Although I feel like this would be harder to resolve or sort of circumvent, just by virtue of the fact that we see his whatever, his time, whatever, and that seems to imply that he is in fact. That is, in fact, him. He did, in fact, die. I don't know how they would get around that. But I don't know. Maybe they could just resurrect him right after those events or something. I don't know.
Yeah, or they could get creative. And I'm sure if they wanted to, they could figure something out that would circumvent Trenzalore.
Yeah.
And that may well be Moffat's plan.
Yeah. Who knows?
Or it may well be his plan to actually have the Doctor die at Trenzalore and hand it off to the next writer, and have the next writer, come up with their own solution. Whether we wanna, find a way to bring back the Doctor, or just have a completely new guy who says, "Well, I'm the Doctor now. I have been inspired by the Doctor to take on the mantle of Doctor, so now I'm the Doctor."
That would be kind of a dick move on Moffat's part to just like, here, I just killed the main character. You deal with it, and that be the end of it.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't put it past him.
Well, no, I wouldn't either. But that would certainly be interesting. But yeah, I think it could. I could definitely see it going either way. I guess the only way to find out is to wait.
Well, yeah, but we still got to speculate all over the place.
Oh yeah,
of course.
Well, obviously. Yeah, I mean, it could be that they are going to address this as soon as the 50th.
It could very well be that they will either address it or push it forward in some way. Like, I mean, I feel like it's obviously not going to be the case that the 50th anniversary kind of drops all of these threads and is just a romp with Matt Smith and David Tennant fighting some Zygons.
Right. Yeah, that seems unlikely. So I should think that at least in some regard, something is going to get advanced. I don't know what, but something.
Well, one aspect of the cliffhanger of the episode that I think some people are overlooking is, where the hell are the Doctor and Clara, and how do they get out of there?
Yeah, there's definitely that.
I rewatched that scene a few times, and it looks to me like they are in a graveyard. Because it seems to me like there are graves around, so they may be back on Trenzalore. Or maybe not.
Oh, yeah, who knows? Yeah, it seemed like they had kind of fallen into some sort of, well, pocket universe, I guess, if we're gonna use that terminology.
I think it was a bubble universe, personally.
Well, there you go. That changes everything. But, some sort of, like, negative dimension, or some little, just like the sort of, some place that, exists outside of whatever, I don't know, the universe or time or space or some such. And it seemed like that was kind of what that deal was. Of course, I have no idea how they would get out of that because I don't know how they got into it. But well, I guess I know how they got into it. But so I think they definitely got to get out of there somehow. It'd be kind of lame if they just explained it away in the 50th. We got out somehow. We're not going to show it, but we got out. But I guess that's possible.
I tried to come up with some things that I didn't like about this episode.
Okay. I tried to as well.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Well, I got a list.
Oh, okay. A list.
First of all, I don't know. This actually isn't a thing that I don't like, because I do like it. I just think it requires a little bit more explanation. Mm-hmm. Like, what is this conference call thing?
Yeah. It seems to suggest that if you really want to talk to somebody and you just knock yourself unconscious, you'll be able to, and they also knock themselves unconscious at any point in their future or past. you'll be able to communicate with them.
I feel like there must be some kind of device that we don't know about or something.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's a really minor thing.
Well, and it could be that Vastra and Jenny were the ones who had some sort of, I don't know, server or whatever, and then, everyone else could just connect to that server just by being knocked out, but they had to do a little bit more preparation or something. That could very well be. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming it would involve servers.
Probably. It usually does. Another thing I really didn't like about this episode, when Strax needs to be knocked unconscious, he gives the guy a shovel and says, "You gotta have to hit me on the head and it might take a while." Why doesn't he just tell the guy to hit him in the pubic vent on the back of his neck?
I think maybe...
What kind of 50th anniversary of Doctor Who is this?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. That's such a... Well, clearly he thought, it would be... I don't know.
Clearly.
I think that would have been giving too much information to his foe. He figures, all right, well...
Oh, no, I like that. Okay, here's something that I actually legitimately do not like at all.
Okay.
There's a small bit of editing that I really dislike.
Okay.
Where the Doctor and Clara enter the tomb through the back entrance.
Uh-huh.
And then suddenly Simeon is talking to Vastra and Jenny and Strax, and then suddenly the Doctor and Clara are there, and it's not clear. Oh, wait, did they just show up there? How did they? What's going on?
Yeah.
And they're kind of just not there one moment, and then they're there the next. I really hated that. I thought it was terrible, and I think it was unbecoming a show of the dignity and stature of Doctor Who.
Well, there you have it. Yeah, yeah, I can't think of an explanation for that. Yeah, I guess we're just gonna have to hate Doctor Who now.
Yeah, well, I've got a head start. I've already started hating Doctor Who. So,
yeah, I don't know. There is no excuse for that except for just shoddy editing work. I think it's just amateur hour up in here.
I guess.
One thing that I would like to gripe about.
Go ahead.
Is an underwhelming amount of the Eighth Doctor, because I feel like we saw 1 through 7 pretty okay. But I don't remember seeing the Eighth Doctor, and I don't think I heard him either.
Well, there was almost no 10, if there was any at all.
I think we did get one quote from 10. I think that happened when he pointed his sonic screwdriver at the... I don't know what we're calling this, his corpse or whatever.
The scar tissue, I think you called it.
Yeah, scar tissue's a good name for it.
Oh, wait, no, that reminds me of another thing I really didn't like. Richard E. Grant says it is an open wound in the universe, and a wound can be entered, and I thought that was gross. I was like, ew.
Yeah, come on.
That's gross.
Entering wounds.
Great intelligence? That's gross.
Not very great of an intelligence. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyhow, sorry. Go back to what you were saying.
No, I was just... I was just pointing out that it seemed like that there wasn't really any Eighth Doctor, and that bothered me, because I thought we were on good terms with the Eighth Doctor, and I guess I was wrong.
Well, there was a time when the Eighth Doctor, there was a serious argument to be made that the Eighth Doctor just didn't count. It wasn't canon. Before the new series came back. Russell T Davies could have said Christopher Eccleston was the Eighth Doctor.
Yeah.
But he didn't, and so I feel like we should be happy with what we've got.
Just that the math adds up that he's in there somewhere.
We did have an Eighth Doctor body double, didn't we?
Did we?
At some point. I don't remember exactly when. I thought there was one.
Oh. Well, if there was.
I know we had a First Doctor, we had a Sixth Doctor, we had a Ninth Doctor, we had a Fourth Doctor. The body doubles, I mean.
Yeah.
And then I guess there was a Second Doctor body double as well that they edited in with the scene of the Second Doctor running, which they took from the 5 Doctors. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, admittedly, I haven't looked at that scene too closely, so I might be griping about nothing. So it's possible that he was in there, and I just didn't. I did not notice. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So maybe I actually don't have anything to complain about, which is really unfortunate.
Another thing, this is not really a complaint, just something I kind of want to point out. It was a little. Most of the time when we saw Clara in the Doctor's time stream, she was yelling out "Doctor."
Yeah.
Whereas the 2 versions of Clara that we got to know didn't seem to know the Doctor.
Yeah.
So it seems kind of like inconsistent in what it means for Clara to insert herself into the time stream. I don't really care, though. It can be inconsistent.
Yeah.
Time is inconsistent.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't know. It's not really a good explanation for that. Although, actually, it seems like when... She also mentions that the Doctor generally does not hear her. Like, he doesn't hear her call out to him or whatever. And it may be, and this makes absolutely... I mean, I'm just making this up completely on the spot. Maybe the only way she can get him to notice her is if she doesn't recognize him. Like this doesn't really make sense, but like, because when she's fragmented up, I'm assuming there's parts of her, maybe some parts don't recognize him, and like some parts of her are more aware of what she's up to than other parts, and maybe it's the oblivious parts that can only get through to him. I don't know how. That doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't make sense, but it could be that the only way she can succeed at her mission of saving the Doctor is by not knowing she's doing it, or only knowing she's doing it subconsciously.
Okay, I'll buy that.
But I don't really know. I don't know why that would be.
Here's another thing that kind of that I thought of. Clara's a Time Lord. One of her is, at least, apparently.
Yeah.
Or at least a Gallifreyan.
Yeah. Huh.
So I wonder if Clara has regenerations?
That's an interesting idea. Yeah. Huh. Well, right, because I have to wonder if... Yeah, I mean, I guess we have to kind of figure out just what it means to split herself up into all those different fragments. And if she can be... Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking, like, maybe she was just visiting Gallifrey, but I don't think Gallifrey really had visitors. Or did they?
It does from time to time.
Yeah. So maybe Clara was just a visitor to Gallifrey. She doesn't actually have regenerations of her own.
Yeah, just a tourist.
A tourist who somehow ended up in the TARDIS repair shop.
Sure.
I'll buy that.
How about John Hurt?
Yeah, how about him?
How about introducing John Hurt as the Doctor?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that was I thought that was crazy.
That was crazy. That was the craziest.
Had you heard beforehand that he had spoiled it?
He had spoiled it?
Yeah, he said in some interview that he was playing a version of the Doctor in
What?
the anniversary, but I had already heard that, but I hadn't known that it was going to be in this episode. So
I had not heard that. Man, I can't believe he spoiled that. That's a bummer. At least to some people, probably.
A little bit. Maybe he just isn't aware of the fact that that's a big thing people care about, but I don't know.
Yeah. No, that was really... I was completely blown away by that. I had, yeah, I don't know. And we had already discussed previously about the Railyard, and actually I think the Great Intelligence refers to him as the Railyard at one point in this episode. Or just...
He mentions that that's a name that the Doctor will go by the end of his life in the future.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm guessing that John Hurt is not playing the Railyard because, well, first of all, because he was introduced as the Doctor.
And yet the 11th Doctor says that he is not the Doctor.
Right.
Because the 11th Doctor said, like, the John Hurt Doctor has one line, and what he says is, like, what I did in the name of peace and sanity. And the 11th Doctor says, but not in the name of the Doctor, which, by the way, I thought was hilarious. That's a really great Moffat title thing.
Yeah.
Where, like, Moffat will have titles that seem to mean one thing but actually mean another.
Right.
Like, it happened again earlier in the episode where he said, like, the Doctor has a secret he will take to his grave.
Right.
Which turned out to be literal. Whereas this turned out to mean... be figurative as opposed to literal. But anyhow.
Right.
But yeah, so the Doctor says he's not the Doctor, but then a big caption comes on and says that he is. I don't know who to trust.
Yeah, I don't know. But the Doctor lies.
That is true.
But in this case, they are both the Doctor. So they could both be lying, I think. Unless... No, that wouldn't work.
So I have 6 theories.
6? Wow, all right.
Theory 1. He is from before William Hartnell.
Ooh.
And that whatever terrible thing he did in the name of peace and sanity got him kicked off Gallifrey, and he was forced to regenerate and then ended up stealing a TARDIS.
Interesting. But that would mean all the numbers are off. That would mean...
Well, it would. And that is not the only theory in my list of 6 theories that means that the numbers are off.
Okay.
But, if this version didn't go by the name of the Doctor, or for some reason is not allowed to be called the Doctor, then, William Hartnell is still the first Doctor.
Well, that's true.
But he is not the first regeneration of that Time Lord.
Right.
My other theory is that it's just the 8th Doctor, but older.
Nah, could be.
Like, this is what Paul McGann eventually looks like once he gets really old.
Yeah, because Paul McGann himself has not aged enough to... He should have aged faster.
Well, he has aged. He does look older than he did in 1996.
Well, yeah. But not old enough. Not John Hurt old, anyway.
No, certainly not.
So Paul McGann kind of slacked off there.
My other theory, and this seems to be the big theory on the internet, and in fact it was already the big theory before this episode even aired, is that John Hurt is a previously unknown incarnation of the Doctor after the 8th Doctor, but before the 9th Doctor.
Ah.
So Paul McGann regenerates into John Hurt, and then John Hurt regenerates into Christopher Eccleston.
Huh. Interesting.
And that John Hurt is the Doctor who fought in the Time War.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, and that could make sense, because it could be that he had to do something that fits that bit of dialogue. And certainly, the Time War was a very big thing where a lot of sacrifices had to be made. So yeah, that's a believable theory.
Well, the one thing that kind of goes against that, though, is that it's suggested that this John Hurt version of the Doctor is the Doctor's greatest secret that he wants no one to know about, and that he doesn't like take ownership of those actions. He's like, that person is not the Doctor. Mm-hmm. But whereas the Doctor's genocide of the Time Lords and the Daleks at the end of the Time War is something he will not only like freely confess to, but he will sometimes brag about it.
That's true. Yeah, like in The Doctor's Wife, where House says, "I've killed hundreds of Time Lords," and the Doctor was like, "Yeah, I killed them all." So yeah.
Right. So that doesn't seem to tally up with the Doctor's attitude toward John Hurt in this.
Yeah, that's true.
Theory number 4, that John Hurt is the 12th Doctor who does stuff at Trenzalore.
Ah.
Theory number 5, he's the Railyard. And theory number 6, he's something like the Railyard, but not actually the Railyard. Like, he's another intermediate regeneration.
So he is the Railyard.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, yeah, he definitely seems like something.
He probably is.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of like the idea that he is one of the regenerations of the Doctor, but I also like the idea that he's not one of the regenerations of the Doctor, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
I don't know whether it does.
I don't know either. I mean, it just because I want the numbers to make sense. I don't want there to be some regeneration that wasn't really the Doctor that we should not be counting as a Doctor. I don't know. I don't know. He's pretty clearly introduced as the Doctor, though, so I'm pretty sure he's the Doctor.
Well, yeah. I mean, whether the Doctor acknowledges, like, that's not the Doctor, or whatever, I think it's pretty obvious that he is some version of the same person, whether he's, like, a regeneration or, like, I don't know, he could be an alternate timeline even, or something, or parallel universe, or I don't know. But it does seem that he is that person. And I feel like the whole reason they had to do that caption was because, it wouldn't be clear.
Right.
That he's the same person.
Yeah.
Even though the Doctor says, he's me.
Right.
I feel like they just kind of really needed to hammer that home.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, certainly if they had not included that caption, I would have been like, oh, he's the Railyard. Because that's just, because, I am aware of the Railyard, and I mean, it seems to fit that he's kind of like an evil byproduct of the Doctor or something. It kind of seems like he could be. And I mean, I'm very bad at interpreting things, but I probably would have interpreted it that way. So... Not that I'm a good source of interpretation, but that's how I would have. So I'm glad they did it, so that even people like me, even people with my disability of being completely unable to interpret things correctly, could figure it out.
If it turns out that he is a previous incarnation of the Doctor that we never knew about, then that means that we're getting close to the limit.
That's true. We are pushing it to the limit. We're walking along a razor's edge. Yeah. That's certainly a thing. I don't know. I'm really getting hung up on the idea of renumbering the doctors. I really don't want to do that. But yeah, you have to wonder if they are going to ever address that 13 regeneration limit thingy, or it's 12. It's what is it? It's 13 incarnations, 12 regenerations, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
they have to address it in some way. No, that's not true. They don't have to. They could completely ignore it. But yeah. I think that whoever is writing the show at the time is probably going to take the opportunity to tell some kind of story about circumventing that limit rather than just ignoring it. Because although it seems like a constraint, that's where you get story ideas, from constraints, kind of.
Yeah.
So sometimes that was a terribly general thing I just said.
Yeah, but it's also sometimes true. No, I agree with that. I think it would make for a very cool story, and I think they would be fools to not try and address it in a story, because I think that is just a gold mine of storytelling right there. Probably. I mean, I don't know. I could probably think of a story if I sat down and thought about it. I think that's how you come up with stories.
Yeah, well, here's one. Here's a story I just came up with. The doctor enters like a sweepstakes where you have to mail in an entry form, and he wins, and he gets 1 million more regenerations.
Yeah. That it's just riveting.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's full of suspense and triumph. But yeah, no, I think they really have to. Well, no, like you just said, they don't have to, but I think it would be really cool of them to do that, and I think they really should consider it.
I hope they do.
Yeah, because come on, it's they've been awfully quiet about whether or not the 13 incarnations is a thing since the new series, but it seems like that should still be. We've never gotten any direct contradiction aside from the Sarah Jane Adventures,
and that doesn't count.
Yeah. Well, the doctor lies. So who knows? Another thing I liked about this episode. This is just a little bit. This isn't related to absolutely anything, but I liked that they mentioned that the Great Intelligence mentioned Solomon, because I still feel.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I still felt kind of bad about that death, but I'm glad somebody called him out on it.
I wonder how he knows.
Well, he's the Great Intelligence. What doesn't he know? Well, yeah, that's another thing, is like, how does the Great Intelligence know all this stuff? Like, how does he know to go to the doctor's grave? Like, how does he know that's going to be a big thing? And how does he know, once he's in there, that he can do all this stuff that he says he can do? It just seems like he knows a lot, and maybe that's just his bit. He just knows everything.
Yeah, I guess you really do have to chalk it up to his intelligence.
Yeah, it is pretty great. I mean, like, come on, if he didn't know all this stuff, what kind of an intelligence would he be? He'd just be like the okay intelligence. I don't know. The pretty good intelligence.
Speaking of his plan, so he goes in there and he messes up the doctor's history, but Clara, I guess when Clara goes in, she just kind of overwrites him. Yeah. Is that what happens? Like, she doesn't have to like physically like overpower him or anything, like stop him from doing bad things. She just overwrites him and does good things instead.
It would seem to be the case, yeah. Yeah, because, I don't know, that's weird, because in the Snowmen, they actually do, he actually, it's not the Great Intelligence exactly, but it's kind of the Great Intelligence being thwarted directly by the actions of the Doctor and Clara. So in that particular instance, yes. But then in all the other instances, no. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that is kind of weird to think about, the fact that the Snowmen... never mind, I'm not going to think about it.
Yeah, it might just be best not to, because then you have to think about the Bells of St. John and whether or not that Great Intelligence was the Great Intelligence before Trenzalore or after. But yeah, let's not think about that.
I guess not.
But yeah, I don't know. Because that is, once again, the Doctor and Clara directly thwarting the Great Intelligence. So, yeah.
Even though they don't know.
You're right. Right. They don't know. So, yeah, that is a confusing thing.
It is. I thought Matt Smith was incredible in this episode.
Oh yeah, he definitely was. I loved the the kind of range of emotion that he was able to bring, and just how upset he was over Trenzalore and discovering that that's what that was, and and all that stuff. And that was just really, really. I don't know. I loved that, and I just thought his performance was just really top notch.
Yeah. It was definitely a standout performance for him among a whole lot of really great performances he's given over the years.
Yeah.
So absolutely praise to him.
Yes.
Praise him.
Yes. I also liked when he called the kids Daleks, like as if that's some kind of insult.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess it is. That's just funny that's his go-to insult.
Mm-hmm.
For mischievous kids.
And I like how it took place on a Wednesday, so it was consistent.
Yeah, that's good. So you have to wonder what's happening on Saturdays, though, because, that was always the thing. I'm really confused by not knowing what's going on the Doctor's Saturdays.
Also, River Song.
Yeah.
Yay, River Song. Post library River Song.
Yeah, I guess so. So that's pretty nifty. I guess that was kind of supposed to be her send off, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Well, she says goodbye, sweetie, so in that sense it kind of feels like a send off, or it could be, setting up a real send off in the future.
Could be.
Because the Doctor has thus far never gone back to the library to see River again.
True.
Or address her in any way. So it could be that, they put that in there to, remind the viewer of that so that they could return to it at a future time.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
One thing she says in the episode about Clara, I don't know if she says, well, if Clara's dead, then how am I still here? And the Doctor says, how? And she says, spoilers. So was that meant just to indicate, Clara's not really dead, which turned out to be the case?
Right.
Or does it mean to indicate something beyond what happens in this episode?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'd completely forgotten about that. At the time, I was inclined to think that it meant something else was coming. I don't know. That's very interesting, because I mean, I don't know, because it's really hard to know where we are in River's storyline, and I mean, or because I mean, obviously they could keep bringing her back and finding new ways to bring her back. Like I would consider this to be a pretty clever way to bring her back. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, they could just keep doing more and more stuff with her and get away with it. So I don't know.
Me either. Yeah, if this is the end forever, then I guess I'm fine with that, and it was a pretty good send off. But if it's not the end and they have more to do with the character, then that's fine too.
Yeah, I'm fine with either of those things.